Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are here at booth 423. We're doing NestGen Express. Welcome to the next installment of NestGen Express. Super excited, sponsored by Flightbase. My name is Jason Sansucci. I'm going to be the host of today's show, and I am really excited to be here with Kevin Toderal of RMUS Canada. I think I should probably throw in a boot in there somewhere. But, I'm just really excited to have you on the show, Kevin. Welcome.
Great to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll thank Bashali for the very kind invitation. So we're going to start things off with more of we'll call it an extremely serious question. Like, this is very important. This is very, very important. A very serious question. So how would you describe we're going to talk about drone in a box, obviously, right? We got a big drone in a box here. We're talking about drones in a box. How would you describe your drone in a box solution if it were a contestant on a dating show?
Wow. So, shout out to dating show. So I think I would describe we've got this EGI doc right here. So I would describe that as, well-dressed, call it, professional looking, a little bit of attitude, saying, I'm the best. I know it. I'm not arrogant about it, but I'm confident. So this is something unique for us. Now there are others though. There are others. The Hextronics.
Oh boy.
Example, we both know and love. The Hextronics box is more utilitarian. I'm thinking like a muscle shirt. It's mysterious. It's bigger. It's rougher, but still confident. But so mysterious.
I love that. I think that's fantastic. So, you know what? I think we're obviously here to talk about drones in a box, and we're just going to keep discussion going in the next question. So, how are drone in a box solutions revolutionizing traditional methods of inspection and security?
So it's a great question. I think I'll differentiate between.
Absolutely.
Right? So, inspection is limited by certain aspects of what you can do, when you can do it, how you do it. And so I think the drone in the box technology is really revolutionized because of a few things. Number one, the amount of data you collect. So just because you're able to fly more frequently, you're able to fly as much as you want, basically, and not constrained by pilots. Now you've got all this other data to deal with, right? And so for AI models, or being able to lawyer things autonomously, it's changed it in that way. Secondary, which kind of comes down to a little bit of the same, is you can get more frequent data. So in addition to more, maybe I have an inspection cycle, for example, that was once a month, once a quarter, once a year, once every 2 years. And now all of a sudden I can do that inspection every day. I can do it every hour of my morning. So now it's really rethinking the way I've done things to take advantage of the fact that I can do it for it. Now, sometimes I don't want to do it for it, but that's the job. So that's on the inspection side.
Right.
Security is pretty obvious. I don't know how much they are down here. In Canada, the average cost of the security guard fully loaded is about $120,000. So it's a lot more than a drone in the box that, many years of software. Yeah. And so for a lot of these things, it's going to dramatically reduce the cost. But again, they don't sleep. They don't need their boats. They don't get bored. I'm sounding like a Terminator thing.
Yeah, I was going to say.
In a good way, right? It's like, it's Terminator 2. Of course, Stigler's a good guy, right? And so that's really revolutionizing the way they're able to deploy and what they can see.
I think that's really, really important. You've already sort of answered this question, but let's maybe reframe it. So we have sort of you've mentioned the key advantages. Like, are there, this isn't on here, I'm literally throwing this in there, it's very left field. What are some of the maybe lesser thought of potentially drawbacks or cons? Because there's a lot of pros. You mentioned a lot of pros. What are some of the cons of a drone in a box solution that people may not be thinking of? And how is the industry working to overcome that?
So I think it's a great question, because with any new technology, you have cons, right? So the first thing is you're something that wants to develop this technology is, you need to get support right up and down the line, right? So you've got to deal with people that maybe you haven't had to deal with. True. And when you're flying, you're controlling it, you're looking at it visually. In these ones, ultimately, the use case is just going to go by itself, right? So I know our regulator, they hate the word autonomous, right? You could do autonomous flight, you just can't call it autonomous.
Don't call it that. Yeah.
So really one of the pitfalls is trying to go immediately to autonomous BD loss operations, right? So you can't do. And so you need to manage expectations internally and think about it where, okay, well, how can I start a small visual line of sight? Maybe I'm going to have a visual observer so I can break that down.
Yeah.
So that's one drawback. The other one is, just trying to go back to what I said about data, which is, do I really need all this data, right? So you need to be very selective about your use cases, because if somebody's going to say, well, I don't need it 10 times, that just gives me 10 times more profit. And then the last thing is, this equipment is not perfect, right? So again, we're looking at TGI Dock, which is one of the best, if not the best. It's pretty reliable. But if you're used to the reliability of an M30T drone with a pilot, it's not going to be the same, right?
Right. I think that's really important to differentiate because some of this technology, obviously, this entire industry is not technology limited. Like, I don't think that's ever going to be the problem. That's never been the problem. It'll never be the problem. It's not the technology limited. We're talking about sort of the use cases, the regulations, the safety case, all of the things that we're sort of over time proving to not just sort of get industry approval, but also public approval and regulatory approval. So those are all really important. But I want to sort of dive deeper into a specific use case. So can we talk about a specific use case where drone-in-a-box technology has sort of significantly improved the efficiency of safety?
Yeah, so this is, I'll take a quick step back just to tell you. So what we do at RMS Canada for deploying this technology is rather than trying to get people to buy it and just do their own thing, we selected a few companies for beta progress. And so we bring it on site for a couple of weeks. We run on certain use cases, things like that. And so one of the great examples is we had an opportunity with the original DOF, which is back last year. So this was a pre-production model. It was a little rough, I'm not going to lie. But we took that out randomly for a couple of days to a wind farm that we work with them near a drone partner of ours. And so we just said, hey, we're gonna bring it out. They were interested in a couple of use cases. We stayed there for a couple of days and we did a lot of things. And the biggest takeaway from that was wind farms are actually an awesome place for drone-in-a-box.
Okay.
It's just because there's so many things that they could do that they aren't doing now. So there's obvious applications that you would think of. You're going to do some kind of inspection,
of course,
just security. But wind farms, a lot of the ones, at least this particular one, they're in a remote area. So they're worried about wildlife. They're worried about people poaching that wild. So, people shooting at wild.
Yeah.
Well, so that was a great example of they're able to use that for permanent security to have an idea of, when people are coming in. So they're like, yeah, it's an edge. Now, specific to, we can't automate wind turbine inspection just yet.
Right.
It could be coming. But for the safety aspect is up in Canada it gets cold in November. And so you can get
allegedly
ice developing on the nacelle or the bright. So obviously the typical wind turbine blade is spinning at 200 kilometers an hour. So that's 120 miles an hour. It's a lot. It's fast.
Very fast.
And if ice starts flying off of that thing, you can cause a lot of damage.
Oh, man.
So one of the things we found, you can do a quick look up and down. Is there ice on the blades? Is there ice on the nacelle?
Okay.
And so where that's important is if they're going to send an inspection team to be able to go up and see, is it iced? Because typically if they see it's iced, they're coming right back down. But there's still a danger to them while it's there. So if they know that ahead of time, they can mitigate, they can not go out, they can do that. So that's a great example of safety. The other thing is what happens with wind turbines is lightning strikes and strikes, right? So the obvious stuff. And so what they do is they don't always have an immediate idea of any damage, right? And so normally they're either going to shut that down, or sometimes they might not shut it down, but they'll call a crew in. And obviously, there was a case in this, say, wind farm where a blade broke off. It seemed like half a mile. So you can pick the size of a wind turbine blade half a mile. Now, if they've been able to, after the strike, immediately get a drone up or autonomously get a drone up whenever there's some kind of activity, they'd be able to have a visual of understanding, hey, is there damage? Do we need to shut this down? Can we not shut this down right away? So there's a huge cost effect.
Totally.
Take as well. So that's a great example of just within the inspection on how they've really managed their city.
So, and I'm realizing now as I'm reading through the questions that I've sort of already asked this question, so I might mix it up just a little bit. So I'm curious, this is obviously very new technology, but also not. Like the application of drone technology has been around for quite some time. I'm curious, how does the industry as a whole, I wanted to see Kevin's perspective on this. How does the industry as a whole, how do we sort of overcome some of the larger objections out there, especially knowing that we are pushing further towards autonomy?
So remember in Canada, with regular don't say autonomy.
Yes, just don't say the word. Don't say the word. Got it. What do you say instead?
We say things acting on their own accord. We maybe need a little work with the market.
Maybe, yeah.
So to answer your question, so I think that what you're doing, we talked about it a little bit before, is you really have to position that this is still a beta product. This is early stages. So, you want people to understand we're looking for innovators, and we want you to think like an innovator, which is, look, there's going to be some issues. It's not going to be perfect. We're going to learn. We're going to iterate. We're going to get better. So first of all is just to explain and make sure you have buy-in from whoever your partner is. And I found that when you position it that way, that it's not a finished product already, you get a lot more latitude internally, and weirdly enough, and get a lot more interest. And so that's one way. Certainly the other ways, maybe again, we talked about before, don't start with autonomous BVLOS, right? You can do different things. So, we've done stuff in Canada where we went, our first, BVLOS certificates were it was for a dam spur work, right? So it's a rural area, there's a very low risk. And so really worked with the regulator, and again, the regulators want this to happen. The industry wants this to happen.
Yes.
So they're saying, maybe you don't have to climb Everest on your first try. Maybe you can go to a local ski hill and hike up, right?
Yeah.
So those are the main things in terms of how you manage it. And the other one, frankly, is partner with the right people, right? And so, within the industry on the hardware side, well, I'll say there's a lot of people that are coming into it from a consumer market, not an enterprise one.
Right.
So they're going to think very differently about how they're going to.
Well, they are.
And so they're potentially going to be able to sell these things to customers as well. But it's a process that you need somebody to hold your hand when you're in the. And so you need to pick the right partner that's going to be able to do that, and that they have then, in turn with the people like Flightbase, embedded the back end of the right. We know, again, we're not going to be perfect, but we know that this is, it's not going to fly away and crash on you, right?
Right.
So you vetted into that. Right?
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate letting me throw in a slider in there. Well, so that's kind of all the questions we have today. But Kevin, this has been enlightening. Like I love talking about this technology. I love hearing your perspective on this technology and what we're going to be doing with it. In the past, today, and in the future. I think your perspective is fresh, but it's also rooted in just a lot of experience and enterprise experience. I think that's really important. So that's a wrap on episode 2 of NestGen Express here at the Flightbase booth 423. Catch us on the next episode. We're having a blast, folks. Bye now.